Here at the Future Gallery, the walls are plastered with cuttings from newspapers, extracts from books, and pages from An Anatomy of Youth. Through the corridor is a blank open space which has been transformed into an exhibition that portrays an anatomy of youth.
Young people as a percentage of the population are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And so that kind of seemed interesting, and doing something that was about politics from their perspective seemed important. So I guess, like many organisations, we're worried about young people's voices being marginalised. I've been working with Celia Hannon on this project, An Anatomy of Youth, for the last year.
Well, it's really nice. I mean, we were trying to do something a little bit different with this report. Its format, the way it includes kind of essays, portraits, and chapters, and attitudinal data is a little bit different. So the great thing about tonight was getting people's response to that and seeing that everyone could find something of interest and of value in what we put together.
The busy youngsters gathered in this room are all blogging as part of the V20 scheme, which encourages people to volunteer and become involved in events like these. Today, they have each been given an extract of Anatomy of Youth and have been asked to blog about it, giving their perspective.
Today is the launch of the Anatomy of Youth report, and this is a project we've been working with Demos on, and it's looking at the transfer of political capital away from young people and the challenges that they're likely to face over the next decade.
I've read the report and done a couple of blogs and been around the event and looking forward to talking to people about it later.
Generally, it's a really important document, and I hope that the people it's aimed at, particularly key politicians, actually sit up and pay attention to what it says.
I guess it's a breakdown of how young people identify themselves within society and the role that we perceive ourselves as playing, and then our visions for the future in terms of how we would like to be represented and how we would like to be engaged.
When we were kind of designing this, we wanted to do something that people could relate to, like at different levels, so that when you're in the middle of the room, you kind of have one experience of the story of the research, and that you can look at these big things, which are super big, which give you a rough idea of some of the bits of information that we encountered doing research for this project.
I thought that the portraits of the people in the report, of the young people, really chime with the research that I've been doing into kind of what young people. I've been writing a big piece for the magazine, so I've gone around and talked to lots of young people, and the sense that they're kind of very opinionated and they want to do things in their own way, and they're not kind of hidebound by normal kind of structures, and they're prepared to kind of take their own path, and they're kind of creative and entrepreneurial in the way that they think about things.
I think it synthesises a whole raft of different perspectives and comes up with a sort of a true anatomy of the diversity of concerns and issues that young people and politicians have to address.
It's really impressive, really engaging, really brings out some of the interesting ideas that are coming up, and a lot of a sort of enthusiasm amongst young people for looking at how society works and rethinking it.
I love the presentation, like from a design background, and the way that the information is presented. I really like it. It's immediately engaging.
I think what was probably most interesting is what I read in the first chapter. Well, I can't remember where it was actually specifically, but it's more to the point that young people's portrayal is not something which we have portrayed onto the world, rather it's what the world has portrayed onto us, the media, politicians, how wider society views young people, and that's the portrayal that sticks, rather than how we view each other.
These are the 5 areas that we chose to focus on, which we think represent some of the great unaddressed challenges in young people's future. How they adapt to climate change, how their rights and their sense of individual freedoms and their personal identity maps onto a new digital environment, how they will sort of thrive in families which are assuming more kind of diverse and varied forms, but will have to take on more responsibilities for care, looking after like an ageing population.